session dun sa ating wrap up. So, third episode. Episode 3.
Episode 3.
Episode 3 of ramping up your applications from VB6 to .NET. I'd like to introduce you to the one and only MVP for C#.
Dalawa kami.
Nino?
Smart din man. Sabihin.
The only MVP for C# in Luzon. Kada mo na si Bubbles. It's John Lim Hap.
Right, good evening. Ayan, so I'm John, and tonight I'm going to talk about yung business logic part no sa VB6. Well, supposedly VB6 to .NET migration. Unfortunately, yung actual machine ko is ayaw mag-project. And apparently, siguro may force field yung Microsoft against Apple products. So, ayaw gumana. Ayan. Yan si Sandra.
Saan ba yung Apple product na yan? Pakita mo yung Apple product.
Tinago ko na sa bag ko.
Baka maglago pa yung demo.
Oo nga eh. So yun. So basically yung concepts lang yung i-discuss natin ngayon. Tawag dito. So, yan. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of John Deliso, our MVP for ano nga ba?
Management infrastructure.
Ayun, management infrastructure. Thank you for answering that question about tawag dito, yung sa baby scripting and PowerShell and everything.
Siya is the only one in the Philippines.
He's the only one. Yan ang unique.
Yeah, he's the only one.
Yan ang unique, di
For
ba?
how many years na? For 3 years. For 2
2 years.
So kung natagdagan, ahead ka ng 2 years.
Saka si Edu Lorenzo, MVP for ASP.NET.
/IIS, bago na ngayon.
Ganun? /IIS?
Yes.
Okay.
ASP.NET /IIS.
Alright.
You have to know both.
Sige. Okay. So, hindi, ka na rin? Admin ka na rin. Web admin ka na rin. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for...
I pretend.
You pretend. Thank you for answering the queries kanina. If you haven't, lahat ba kayo nakapag-attend ng session last week or the previous session, diba? Tawag dito, parang umunti tayo ng umunti. Di ba, pwede tayo dumoble sana.
Okay lang. May pagkain, hindi na pa rin karami.
Okay. Precisely, that was what I was thinking. Ayan. So, mostly napakita na sa first session, napakita natin yung first steps about yung migrating from VB6 to .NET, and then after that yung pag-migrate ng data access from ADO to ADO.NET to entity framework. Yun yung pinakita last time. I'm moving to more conceptual stuff now. Hindi na ako makakapagpakita rin ng code demo, partly because of the machine problem. Pero yan, sige. So we're going to start off with where we left off yung entity framework last week, and then some common patterns and anti-patterns of business logic. And then i-address ko dito specifically is the kind of Visual Basic 6 programming that we've been doing mostly in the enterprise space. Then a little on the ORMs, pabalik rin tayo doon sa data access, which ones to use, kung ano yung considerations mo, and then some concepts about improving the code that we have dun sa application natin. Okay, so where we left off, entity framework and other ORMs. So you might remember this slide from last week. Basically, what we have here is the model for entity framework, but it also represents practically any model ng lahat ng klase ng ORM. So you have an application and the ORM interface, or you could replace the entity framework here with nhibernate, link to SQL, And practically what those do is automate nila yung data access mo so that so that you don't have to make your own SQL statements sa loob ng code mo. Siya na yung magbubuo ng SQL statements for you based on either yung structure ng database mo na nakita niya from yung wizards or interfaces ng EF, for example, or based on definitions na ibibigay mo sa kanya, no? So, may ODotNet provider, and then sila na bahala mag-create ng queries and updates to communicate with your data store. Okay. So why is it important in the first place, to really just have a separate layer, a separate mechanism for your data access? So number one is separation of concerns. Ang madalas na model natin, which is di-discuss natin later, is that magkasama yung business rules natin sa data access. So with Visual Basic 6, the most common practice is that your business logic has your select statement, it has your data provider, yung SQL command, etc. Tapos nagko-connect siya within as a part of that workflow ng business mo. Pero ang ideal is what you want to see is a code that only deals with business logic per se. Ayaw mo na makita yung, ideally dapat hindi makita yung SQL yung SQL code dun sa code na nagde-describe rin ng business rules mo. Or hindi siya makita, or hindi siya mahalo doon, and worse, hindi siya dapat mahalo rin sa UI code man, sa UI flow. Okay. Next is the reuse of data access methods across your different business rule implementations. So for example, meron akong some part na application ko that accesses a table, let's say employees table, so I have different views na only slightly different. Tapos I access them all at different times, or in some cases I have a complete list of employees, I have a query for a complete list of employees, I have a query for only just one employee, so if these are on separate parts of my application, mangyayari doon, ika-copy paste natin yung select statement, babaguhin natin ng konti, di ba? Ganun ang nangyayari. So para hindi natin kailangan na mag-copy paste lang ng code as a form of code reuse, and we could just reuse yung whatever we coded before. We prioritize making a centralized, assembly or mechanism, so that we could use that in all the other places where we have our business rules. Tapos, syempre, kapag nagdagdag tayo ng bagong business rules or whatever, we don't have to repeat the code anymore. And then finally, as I said, it becomes a centralized management of things like connection pools, data caching, and present data caching possibilities, etc. Particularly important yung concept ng centralized management ng connection. For example, management ng connections and connection pools. So last week Warren gave that question kung meron ba sa inyo napagalitan na ng DBA, for example, sa dahil masyado maraming connections yung application mo. So ako experienced that. That is sa PNB. Papatawag ka ng DBA kasi may 120 open connections sa application mo. Kasi pala hindi mo na tawag dito, hindi mo na close, hindi mo na ma-manage. So object relational mapping technologies like entity framework and Hibernate, ganyan, and Lake2SQL even, siya na bahala na mag-manage ng connections, reuse yung existing connections niya or putulin yung connections na hindi na active. Okay. Anyway, let's move on to yung common patterns and anti-patterns of excuse me, business logic. So, paano ba nakadistribute yung business logic across your application? In the context of what I just discussed, sinabi ko nga in many cases sa Visual Basic 6, we have applications that had data access all over the place. So what do we mean by patterns, and specifically what do we mean by anti-patterns? Excuse me. This is one possible pattern, and it might, I'm not sure if it represents some of your, and I know it represents some of my previous applications na ginawa ko earlier in my career. So you have your user interface, your data access, and your business logic all in one assembly, no? And I believe that in Visual Basic 6, it tends to go this way. So meron kang click button, click events, di ba? Meron kang click events ba? Inside your click event, nandun yung select mo, nandun yung select statement mo, nandun yung pang-open mo ng data mo, nandun yung changes na gagawin mo sa UI mo, nandun din yung processing ng data na nakuha mo from your select statement. Hindi lang basta yung ibabind mo doon sa data mo, kundi if you have to apply changes across a big data set, for example, nandun na rin din yun sa loob nandun sa loob nung event na yun. And what that causes is that meron kang very, very fragmented na application wherein each event contains several things: data access, business logic, and your user interface code. So magkakasama sila lahat. In this case, this is what a lot of developers previously called yung big ball of mud. Parang ano na lang siya, medyo disorganized, dahil disorganized yung code mo, palaki na lang ng palaki yung code base mo with sino kung hindi ba nakaka-experience ng mga 1,000 line na methods.
Ha?
Yan.
Ano ba nun? 1,000?
Ha?
1,000? Anong ginagawa nun?
Oh, well, you can imagine.
Oo nga. Pero sipin mo yun kung 1,000 yan.
Pwede nga yan. Actually, ang worst case scenario na nakita ko before was a Visual Basic 5 application na ayaw na niya mag-compile kasi yung select statement na ginamit nung this was a colleague of mine, yung select statement niya reached 1,024 kilobytes. So that's 1 megabyte.
Yung select?
Select statement lang yan. So that's a join across several inner, outer. Parang ganun. So that's a join across several unnormalized, I think 20 unnormalized tables na iba na pare-pareho yung so you have to update that. So yun yung an example, ayaw na niya mag-compile kasi umabot siya dun sa 1 meg na limit nung .vbs na file niya. Dahil sa select statement na yan. Pero so otherwise ganun rin, pwede rin mangyari sa inyo in such a case that, especially meron namang ibang mga Visual Basic 6 programmers, hindi rin sila gumagamit ng modules, hindi rin sila gumagamit ng yung basic na classes. Di ba meron na sila basic, parang ba yan? Ha? Class, di ba? So meron na basic definition ng class noon eh. So they don't know where else to put their code but the click event. So doon na iiwan lahat. Ngayon, kapag halimbawa nag-change yung data structure ng table mo, nagdagdag ka ng column, nagtanggal ka ng column, mas malala yun. Or nagpalit ka ng table